Hi there, I'm Vera Stewart and welcome to the VeryVera Show. I'm very privileged tonight to have a wonderful guest, Joseph Howell from North Augusta. And Joseph, thank you so much for being here tonight.
You're welcome, Ms. Vera, and thank you so much for having me. It means so much to me to be here with you, and it's meant so much for me to work with you in the past.
Well, it's truly been my pleasure. You know, I told your mom recently, Renee Howell from North Augusta came to my yard sale at my cottage, and I'm sure she came home and said, oh my gosh. But she said, are you hiring people for the Masters? And I, of course, at that time I said yes, and that's all she said. And the next thing you know, I'm getting a resume from Joseph with just glowing accolades of his time at Johnson & Wales, his culinary experience at North Augusta High School. And tell me a little bit about that, Joseph.
Well, when I was a senior in high school, I found out that we had a culinary program. All the other 3 years, I had no idea we had that. And when I got in there, my teacher, Miss Butler, looked at me and said, you're a star. We're gonna make you something good. So she put me in competitions. We went to regionals and won. We went to state and won. And then from there, we went to nationals. Now, I did place first runner-up, but the best part of that was when I went off to school, my roommate was the guy who beat me.
Yes, well that is great. What a wonderful story. And you know, it just shows you that you can be right there in the school and not know exactly what's going on. And that culinary program Miss Butler has at North Augusta High School is phenomenal. Well, tell us what we're making tonight.
Well, tonight we have a field pea and bean salad. It's going to be with a ricotta and lemon cheese. And before the show, I fire roasted some poblano peppers, red peppers, and tomatillo tomatoes. And the one thing you want to know about this is when you're going to cut them, you need to have a very sharp knife.
And you did.
Yes, ma'am, I did. Now, I have learned that through being at culinary school and working with other people and working with those who have dull knives. Sharper your knife, better it's going to be.
Well, that technique is just gorgeous, the way that you do that. And I know that chefs are very protective of their knives because that is quite an investment. But these beans are just great looking. What have we got there?
Well, before the show, I did boil these white acres for about 2 minutes in boiling hot water with just salt and bay leaves. Also the same with the pink eye bees here. They went for 4 minutes though. And the wonderful butter beans that are just perfect this time of year. I found them at a produce stand right up the street. So when you get those from those local farmers, it is just the best and freshest food you can have.
Well, and you can tell, and I love the idea that we're using a pink eye.
Yes, ma'am.
Black-eyed pea, that's awesome. Okay, now this is ricotta cheese.
This is ricotta cheese, and over here we have lemon juice and lemon zest.
And you want me to mix that together,
yes, ma'am, if you can go ahead and start mixing that. While you're doing that, I'm gonna throw together these boiled peanuts into this bowl here.
Oh, and the boiled peanuts, that's when I get to do this part. I love this part. You know, when we eat boiled peanuts at the ball games, you know how you put them in your mouth and crack them? You know, I really can't do that on the air. But, you know, it's just truly just so easy for these to pop out. And what did you do to those?
I boiled them in salt, pepper, and bay leaf and thyme, and then just pulled them out, set them aside in the oven, let them cool down because this is a room temperature salad. We don't want it hot, and we also don't want these peanuts falling apart.
Well, they really, the colors on this are just amazing.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna add these butter beans in here right now.
Now on this, I'm mixing the lemon zest and the lemon juice in with this cheese. Is it gonna break down the cheese at all because of the acid?
It will break down the cheese a little bit. The one thing that it really will do is it will add a fluff to the cheese.
And I could see that already.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I've got some fresh tarragon.
Fresh thyme.
Fresh thyme.
And you're just gonna throw that in there whole. The only reason why we're doing that in there whole is because we don't want to eat it. We do just want the flavor to get off into the cheese.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of bury it in there
yes,
so
ma'am.
That flavor will get started.
And I'm gonna take these peppers and tomatoes and put them in here.
Gosh, aren't those beautiful? Now, the juice and everything, you want some of that good juice to go in there as
we don't want to waste it at all. This is a good part of the salad.
Is there some hotness to these peppers?
There are. The one thing you do want to do when you're cutting the peppers is try and take the seeds out because the seeds are the hottest part of the pepper.
I know, I used to make pepper sauce with my mother-in-law and I would wear gloves because the seeds would get us. Okay, well this looks like it's coming together really well. We're gonna let this seasoning all get together and we'll come back from the break. Joseph's got some more surprises for us, so you don't want to miss it. Hey, welcome back, and I want to remind everyone that I've got a very special guest tonight, Joseph Howell from North Augusta. And Joseph, you know, I met you kind of on the sly right before Masters.
Yes, ma'am.
Because your mom, Renee Howell, was looking after you, which moms do that, you know.
Yes, they do.
And brought you and I together for the Masters Golf Tournament. And I will have to say, and I've said this to you, and I know you get embarrassed when I say it, but we were able to work together on the second night of the golf tournament. We had a customer that really was not tuned in to what's a squash casserole,
right.
You know, some of these casserole sort of situations that, you know, are all of our favorite Southern delicacies. They really didn't quite understand that, and I already knew that this young man really knew what he was doing. So he and I worked together on this account that night, and I truly became your student. It was such a delight to see the passion and the enthusiasm for what you do and your talent at such an early age. I was just completely spellbound by what we did. So that's part of the reason that you're here, is I wanted the audience to see what talent we have right here in Augusta, Georgia, with someone that has finished culinary school, that's, you know, following his dream. And when your teacher said you're going to be a star, you are going to be a star. And you're going to be a star tonight, because we're making something else wonderful. What are we doing?
Yes, ma'am. Well, right now what we have is, while we were out, I peeled potatoes, and I also put them on a cheese grater and grinded them up. And then right after that, I put them in water to prevent them from oxidizing, because no one likes a purple potato.
No.
Not at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to pat those dry.
Okay, and so I've just got some paper towel down here, and I do this with cucumbers a lot when I make a cucumber salad. So we really just want to lift this up and just squeeze as much of that liquid out as possible.
Yes, ma'am.
And I almost like to do it like I do sweaters sometimes when I wash a sweater, is to get it in a big old beach towel and kind of roll it up. So you just want to get
almost
as
like
much,
if you were to squeeze spinach.
Exactly.
Squeeze, squeeze,
just
squeeze.
really get that moisture out of there.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what are you going to do with these potatoes?
These potatoes are going to be the crust for our sea bass. What we're going to do is we're going to have a light layer of the potatoes around the sea bass, because everyone likes to see a golden potato or a golden seared fish, and this will really, really help bring out the color for this.
Well, and sea bass, where did you get that?
And actually, this sea bass, I was lucky enough to find it at, once again, our fresh market here in Augusta. And the best thing about it was they had already filleted and cleaned the fish for you. Most people do not understand how to break down a whole fish.
But you're also really smart, Joseph, because, you know, when we talked about this, you said, I said, well, were you able to find the sea bass? And you said, oh, yeah, I called the fresh market.
Yes, ma'am.
And I talked to the seafood manager, and he was so excited that what I was doing. And, you know, I think a lot of times we don't recognize that sometimes we need to be a little proactive.
Exactly.
You know, call the store, ask them if they have it. So that was great. Okay, so
what I'm going to do here, yes ma'am, is I'm going to take flour, just put it on a little pan here. And this is cayenne pepper. What the cayenne pepper kind of does with this flour, not only does it give it seasoning, but cayenne pepper opens up the taste buds in your mouth.
Oh, yes, it does.
So you can taste food a lot more.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to season this here with salt.
Well, that's a good bit of salt.
Yes, ma'am. You always want your flour heavily seasoned. And fresh ground pepper.
And now this is buttermilk.
Yes, ma'am.
And a couple of whole eggs.
Yes, ma'am. 2 whole eggs. About 1/3 cup buttermilk there. And you're going to mix that up real nice and smooth. I'm going to go ahead and add in a little salt for you.
Okay.
And some fresh ground pepper as well.
Okay.
And while she's doing that, looks like she's finished up, I have taken this sea bass here and I have patted it dry. The reason why we pat this sea bass dry is because we want the salt and pepper to stick to it. And when that falls off, we just lose the flavor of the fish.
Because it starts sliding around in the pan.
Yes, ma'am. And another thing is, with fish from the sea, we do want to lightly season it. So I'm going to lightly season it with salt.
Okay, gosh, that is nice and dry. It's a beautiful piece of fish. Great. Okay.
And so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to drop it in the egg wash we got.
Okay.
pat it, dredge it in our flour, our
I
seasoned
love
flour.
that word, dredge.
Yes, ma'am.
The children at cooking camp love when we talk about dredging things.
And we're going to take it right here, put our potato crust over top.
God. Okay, and you're just kind of smashing that in.
Yes, ma'am, just smashing it. We want it light and thin, though.
Oh,
So
doesn't that
on the
look
bottom,
great?
what we have is we have a nice thin layer, and on the top, all I'm doing is just adding a little bit more potatoes to make it nice and thin.
Okay, y'all are going to have to come back. I know you're on the edge of your seat because he's going to get that cast iron skillet so hot, it's just going to cook this fish. So come back with us during the break and after the break, and we'll get started on cooking this. You know, I was thinking recently about some of the old-fashioned things that I like to think about when it comes to being etiquetely correct. And I recently had a party and had some of the nicest notes written to me afterwards, to actually both my husband and I. And you know, something like that is so special and so well received, and doesn't take but a minute, but to be able to use that beautiful stationery and write a sweet note is so nice. You know, another thing that I was thinking about is, you know, when you have a special event in your life and someone is nice enough to take a picture and then actually mail you the picture instead of sending it on their phone or through email. I've had this photo for years that someone took of us at an event. And then another thing that's wonderful to me is to think of something like maybe the minister gave a wonderful sermon on Sunday that touched you in some sort of special way. He's probably not expecting someone in the congregation to thank him, but just a little quick note to say that it really meant a lot to you is so appreciated. So think of those little thoughtful thoughts, write them down, and do something old-fashioned. It'll make you feel special. Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, I'm with my good friend Joseph Howell, Chef Joseph, I like to call him, recent graduate of Johnson & Wales and worked with me during the Masters this past year. Phenomenal on what he knows how to do, and you know, tonight we're doing a sea bass.
Yes, ma'am.
That we encrusted with some really thinly sliced grated potatoes before we left for the break. And you know, we all get really nervous, Joseph, those of us that don't get to put chef in front of our name, we get nervous sometimes about cuts of meat, whether it's fish or beef or you know, whatever it might be that's expensive. And you know I love to order sea bass at a restaurant because it's probably the most expensive fish on the menu, and it just melts in your mouth. It's so good. So the beauty of this dish tonight is that Joseph has basically showed you a pre-preparation that's not difficult to do. And you were able to get the fish cleaned and ready at the fresh market just like you wanted it. Now we're talking a very basic pan that
Very basic pan.
Everybody has.
A regular cast iron pan that you and your grandma probably still have.
Exactly. And so where are we with it?
While we were gone, I put some oil in this pan. I heated it up, probably about medium heat, just to where we can start to hear it barely sizzle just a little bit. And so now I'm going to take the sea bass and I'm going to place it in the pan.
There you go.
And as you can hear it start to sear. Now I'm going to leave this alone. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit, about medium high, and we're going to step over here and get started on our blistered tomatoes.
And I love that, you know, the terminology, the storytelling, instead of saying that you're going to heat those or saute, you're going to blister them.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I used to do to my sons when they misbehaved.
And my mom did the same thing to me.
That's why I like you so much.
So right now I have this pan about medium heat. I'm going to take the oil, put just a touch of oil in here.
And that's olive oil, correct?
Yes, ma'am. This is olive oil. This is fresh olive oil from Fresh Market Grill. It is actually Georgia olive oil. You know, we have the best olive oil in the world. It is always talked about, Georgia olive oil, Georgia olive oil. That's what you got to have.
Where is it manufactured, do you know?
I do not. I think it's in the southern part
of the state.
Just because we get so much sun there.
Somebody needs to be Googling that right now as we speak. Okay, then you've got me doing a Murstata sauce.
Murstata sauce.
Murstata.
And I had the same problem too, because my accent is just as strong as hers, and I had to think myrrh.
Well, he told me to think of Aaron Murray, and we all know I love him. So, all right, so I'm going to use the food processor, and he's lined up all the ingredients for me in the order that we're going to put them in. So I'm starting with 2 whole egg yolks, and these are large eggs. And then I've got 2 whole eggs. And then these are this is the nice grainy mustard.
This is Dijon mustard right here on top, and what we have on the side is just regular Duke's mayonnaise. This will help tighten things up and hold it together a little bit.
Did y'all hear that?
And the
Vera
main thing
is using Duke's mayonnaise.
And the main thing that we do have here is mustard grain. This is what's going to give this sauce the flavor.
That's going to be really good. Okay.
So let's go ahead and turn this food
Get
processor
this thing
here on.
going. Okay, now where's my little lid?
It's on there.
Okay.
Now while that's mixing, Miss Vera is going to add a little bit of garlic, some lemon juice, and she's
A little salt and pepper.
a little salt and pepper, always a little salt and pepper.
I love this peppermill too. Okay, now I'm going to gradually
She's
add
slowly
that.
going to add in this oil. Now what this does, it makes an immersion inside. What we have here is our egg yolks, our mustard, and our Dijon mustard. The Dijon mustard acts as our acidity, as well as our lemon juice. And the reason why we do that is if we didn't, it would just fall apart. So this will keep it nice and fluffy.
Oh, that's nice.
And now
Okay.
I got my pan hot over here. I'm gonna go ahead and blister these tomatoes.
You blister those things, or I'm going to make you go pick a switch.
So I'm gonna take a little salt and pepper. Add that in.
A little salt. And Joseph was telling me earlier about the garden that he's planted in his mom's backyard, so some of what he's garnishing with tonight actually came out of his own garden.
It sure did. I have basil, cilantro, flour, and a little bit of thyme that will be going in our dishes tonight.
Oh, okay.
So now that these guys are starting
And how's
to
the
get,
fish coming down here?
fish is going good. We're gonna turn the heat up just a little bit.
And are you cooking that on so many minutes per side, or just until you can see that it's gotten good encrusted on the bottom?
What I'm doing is I'm browning it in the pan, and I'm gonna flip it and then finish it off in the oven.
And you know what? This was exactly what he did with some salmon during Masters, and I
Yes,
was
ma'am.
completely fascinated. All right, well, this is looking great. We're going to get this tossed up and ready to go, and then when we come back after the break, we're going to get it all plated. And are you going to let me taste it?
I am gonna let you taste
yay!
it.
I'm so
I have to.
All right, come back with us. Welcome back, and Joseph, we have had the best time tonight. I
We
just
have.
loved chatting and, you know, putting together a meal that is really very basic, but what's making it so delicious is not only the talented hands that prepare it, but the fact that you've used really fresh
Yes.
ingredients, that you've gotten a fresh piece of fish that is just notorious for being one of the better fish to eat.
Right, exactly.
And you know, you've put together a presentation that we hope the audience will see is going to really make the plate so interesting. So let's get started. We've got one of these crazy plates that I love to use to display on.
And I think these are one of your 3 monkey plates, and are they?
They
Yes,
are.
they are.
Look
so you
great.
can find these at 3 Monkeys as well.
Okay, so what's my assignment here?
So what you're doing is we have let this ricotta and lemon juice and lemon zest along with the thyme sit at room temperature probably about 30 minutes. We've mixed it back up, brought the fluff back to it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that spoon.
And
we're
it
gonna
is nice and fluffy. And you told me to make it look like a cloud.
Make it look like a cloud. Yes, ma'am. Look at that. That's
Look at that.
beautiful.
Doesn't that look like
Wonderful.
it's going to rain.
We're going to rain with peas and beans. How about that?
Okay, great.
So next, what we're going to do here is we will take just a little spoonful of
Is that
peas and
about
beans.
enough?
Yes, ma'am. We'll actually do 2 of those.
Okay.
I like peas and beans.
Gosh, this is gorgeous. Okay.
Okay, and here we have toasted off the sunflower seeds.
Yeah, you put a little oil on the sheet pan.
Yes,
and-
ma'am, and a little bit of chili powder. And this is going to be a part of our crunch and our garnish to this salad.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
And the next thing we have is a little basil with some cilantro flowers. Now, I picked that basil and grew that cilantro flower
I mean,
in
this,
my
and
garden.
it looks like a little boutonniere.
It
I think
does.
it's crazy.
And
Oh,
it's so
love
simple
that.
and easy to do and to put together.
Oh,
And it
that's
just brings it all
wonderful.
together on the plate.
Okay.
Now what I've got here is this sea bass that I pulled out during the break. And these are my blistered tomatoes, butter beans, with a little bit of thyme. And this is the mostarda sauce that you did such a wonderful job
we
on.
talked about the fact that that had really seared really beautifully in that cast iron skillet. And if you let that fish sit there while you're getting everything else ready, what's happening to that fish?
It keeps cooking. So you got to pull it out and put it on a regular plate.
So it's going to
You
be
just
just perfect.
You don't want to waste that money that you spent on that beautiful fish, because no one likes overcooked fish.
That's exactly right.
So I'm going to pick this up here.
Gosh, that turned out great.
Woo. And I've got my mostarda sauce here that Miss Vera did a wonderful job on.
Yes. Mostarda.
Mostarda, yes ma'am,
Mostarda.
you got it. Now this sauce is a little temperament to heat. So you don't want this pan to be hot when you put it in there, because if you do, it does tend to break.
Gosh.
So I'm gonna mix it up just a little bit with my blistered tomatoes, my thyme, and my butter beans. I'm gonna take this and just put it right over top.
Oh, that is just, and that's all you need. I mean, that is wonderful. Has a really, you can taste the grainy mustard in there.
Yes,
it really
ma'am.
has a wonderful.
And that is almost the key to this dish, is that mustard grain.
Now, how far in advance can you make this salad? Could it sit the day before?
Oh yeah, you can make
Okay.
that salad, actually the longer it sits, the better
More
those flavors marinate.
Right.
Just kind of like lasagna
Now,
that you
am I
get
going
and
to
bring
get to
home.
just kind of dive in here
Yes,
real
ma'am.
quick?
Let me put a little bit of time on you.
Okay. Oh my goodness, the crunchiness, it's perfect. Well, we're about out of time. I don't want to leave without telling Joseph how much I appreciate your time today, how talented he is. You're going to see this guy because he is going to be a star. But just remember, no matter what you do it in good taste. So come back with us again next Saturday for another episode of The VeryVera Show.